Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Governance Committee of the 3rd of November 2021, and I declare this meeting open at 11:40am. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded, and I remind attendees to practice social distancing and take the necessary safety precautions. As today's agenda does contain a confidential report, I note that a proposed motion to suspend section 7.11A of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code for the purposes of audio recording the closed sessions in today's meeting for Council's internal confidential use only is now displaying on the screen behind me. Do I have a mover for this motion on the screen? Thank you. That has been moved by Councillor Stemp. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you. Councillor Bradley has seconded. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. We don't have any leave of absences to declare today. We are all here. So we will move straight into our item 4.1, and I will now ask Chief Executive Officer Mr. Silvio Trinca to please enter the discussions. And before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I will now open it up to Mr. Trinca to please open discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report today is the report on the results of the performance of the operational plan for the first quarter of this year. There are 87 projects in the operational plan, and the attachment to the report has detailed commentary about every one of those projects. 3 of the projects are actually completed. They were the ones that were carried forward from last year. We've got 6 on the program that are at a monitor stage. Dealing with the two of those, the City of Choice and the delivery of the Rosia Park Master Plan, as you can see, are reliant on further information coming back from, first, the City of Choice from the state government, and therefore we can't progress that until we get that response. The second one, the delivery of the Rosia Park Master Plan, Stage 1, cannot commence until we have a federal approval in regards to the environment, so that one's currently on hold. There are 4 other projects that are on the monitor status. 2 of those are associated with the Kingston Butter Factory, which Council has previously seen reports on with regards to the delay in regards to the completion of the works, and so there's a recommendation in the report for those target dates to be moved to February of next year, and that is still dependent on the works being completed, and we are waiting for materials to come from overseas. The third project is regards to a waste reduction and recycling strategy, and the commentary in the report is that that has been delayed, and it was delayed because we had to take resources off the project to put onto the transition to the new waste contract with Cleanaway. So that's been delayed, and the recommendation need to extend to March 22. The final one is in regards to delegations review. The Council's been undertaking a delegations review. The organisation has been undertaking a delegation review. That review has become extremely extensive and has taken a lot more time than we originally expected. It's had involvement at significant levels of the organisation, but at the manager and director levels as well, and unfortunately we weren't able to meet the original deadline, which was December this year. To do it properly, ELT's considered that it would be best to push it forward, the deadline, to April next year, to make sure that we actually have a good delegations review rather than a rushed review. And so we're recommending that be a new target date be April next year. And I'm happy to take any other questions. I notice the Deputy Mayor's.
Thank you, Mr Trinker. I'll now open discussion, and I have Councillor Raven, sorry, to open it up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Mr Trenko, how did the delegations review start? When did the delegations review start? Because I don't remember councillors calling for it or anything, so I assume it came from ELT within the organisation.
Delegations review, we're required to review annually, so we're required to commence a review annually. It is an operational, so it's included in the operational report. When you signed off on the operational plan in conjunction with the budget, you signed off on this project.
I've been here for 5 years. I don't remember the delegations review ever taking this long, so I'm just trying to understand what the difference is this time as opposed to every other year.
Every other year, we've got a list of delegations. We have delegations throughout the whole organisation. In undertaking a thorough review, we determined that a lot of those delegations are not true delegations. They don't have a legislative power behind them. And so when we got to look at this year's, we thought we should do it properly. We should go back and assess what is an actual delegation and what is not. What could be just an authorisation, what can be taken out of the list of delegations, and the delegations needs to have a legislative link back to a power. And so we engaged a lawyer's firm to help us, CBP Lawyers, and I suppose what's happened is the extent of the work involved has become much greater than what we originally expected. Last time, in every other year, all we've done is gone and looked at every one of those delegations, made some grammatical changes to the delegation and got them reapproved. This year is a complete reset.
So the reason I ask is because there's a number of projects and requests that councillors have on the cards that are being delayed or deferred because of the amount of resources required for the delegation review. And I don't think councillors had any awareness of the impact that the delegations review was happening until we started asking, we started unfairly putting pressure on the manager, saying, hey, where's the stuff that we're asking for? And then it became apparent that this delegations review had become bigger than Ben-Hur, and that there was only so many resources that could be stretched to a certain point. I guess it's just disappointing that the business at council, the priorities of the strategic arm of council have to be deferred because of the priorities of the administrative arm of council, and we weren't entirely aware of why or how that was happening until we sort of stumbled across it, that's all. And I know we endorsed it through the operational report, but as you say, it's there every year, and I had no understanding, and I read them, I had no understanding that this was going to be such a big undertaking. I didn't realise that, and it was a busy time of year, so it's possible I didn't comprehend it fully. But I guess it's just disappointing that what I want to know is if this is extended till April 2022, does that mean that everything else that we're asking for that's being deferred because of the amount of resources being poured into it by not just the governance, the corporate governance branch, but the entire org? Because like you say, delegations of authority touches every branch across the organisation at the highest levels of the organisation. Does that mean we're going to see continuing delays in the requests that councillors make for reports or for policy review, or is there adequate resources going to be assigned to it so that it is finished by April 22 and doesn't become another governance framework?
Councillor, I'm happy to take on board any specific projects that you have been asking for that you feel that we haven't been able to deliver. At this stage, the officers of the organisation have done the work required and is now back in the hands of CBP to do that final check and checks and balances. So it shouldn't take additional resources of the organisation to bring it to fruition at the expense of other projects. So if you can let me know which specific projects that you're concerned about, I'll take those on board and look at how we can deliver those in a timely manner. And if we can't, let you know.
Off the top of my head, there's the CBF policy review. There is the the council entitlements policy review, and there is the... I just had it a second ago. Yeah, I'll then take them up with you offline. But yeah, there's, and it's just because, unbeknownst to us, corporate governance was under the pump with a much larger review than anyone was expecting. And I know that the manager is moving to address those outstanding requests now. The other one was the meeting code review. So, but these are matters that impact councillors and the community on a nearly daily basis. And I know that some councillors couldn't distribute all of their CBF because of the difficulties the community had in applying for it last financial year, which is a shame for the community. So these things are urgent, and they're relevant to our community and the impacts that it has. I know delegations of authority are important, but we've clearly gone at least 5 years and made them work. I'm just disappointed that, yeah, things have been pushed back and councillors didn't realise the consequences of that until they'd already been pushed back because the delegations of authority is what it was. So I'm going to abstain from this report until the delegation of authority is finished, because I really want that to be a focus of CBP in the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. So, Mr Trinca, what will happen pushing the report back to April as opposed to December for the implementation of any findings and that sort of thing, and then starting the next, if we do this on an annual basis, then starting the next annual cycle?
So extending the timeline doesn't impact the fact that the existing delegations stay in existence. So we're still able to meet all our governance requirements through the existing delegations. At the point in time in April next year, there will be a new list of delegations which council will sign off on, and they then become the delegations going forward. So there's no impact on the fact that we haven't achieved it, apart from the fact that we haven't achieved it, and the resources are still tied up, as Councillor Raven has said, in some regard into this project. It's not ideal. It would have been great to have it done and dusted within the year, and unfortunately we haven't been able to achieve that. Going forward, the next year's review will be simple. It will be a simple process because all the legislative links will have been created and made, and the delegations database will be completely cleaned out. So going forward, it will be a much cleaner and simpler review process that will easily be able to be done within the year. This is a one-off reset of delegations.
Okay, thank you. So councillors, just be mindful if you have any projects that aren't being delivered or you need investigated, please email Mr Trinca and let him know, and just CC me in so I know what's getting followed up. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything? No? Do I have a mover? Sorry. Councillor Bradley has moved the report as displayed on the screen. Do I have a seconder for the report? Thank you. Councillor Stemp has seconded. Thank you. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the report? There being none, all those in favour please raise a hand. And that is carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Raven, who is abstaining. All right, that marks the end of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr Trinca's reports. Do you have any general business for us? No? Does anyone have any general business for Mr Trinca this morning? Beautiful. All right, we will move on to item 5.1. I will now refer to item 5.1, and can we please invite the Finance Manager, Ms Caroline Bugg, to the stage. And before we open discussion, do any councillors have conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I will now refer to Ms Bugg to please open public discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Item 5.1 is the monthly executive financial report for period ending 30 September 2021. Organisation continues to perform well to the end of September. The operating surplus is currently $11.7 million. The biggest driver of this improved position against budget is the lower than budget expenditure. Some of this lower expenditure is due to delays in the timing within the budget. These anomalies will be adjusted in the first budget amendment. There are also variances in the employee costs due to the prioritisation of recruitment. Some recruitment processes are starting later than how they were scheduled in the budget. Capital expenditure is currently behind budget, predominantly in the area of water. There are a couple of very large projects that have been delayed there, one being the sewage treatment upgrade at Logan Home and the gasification project. There's also a delay in the York Street fit-out. Again, adjustments for these projects will be made in the first budget amendment. The local infrastructure program funding and expenditure is in this report, the quarterly report or update for that. The first table in that report will note that some funding is yet to be allocated for the current year, and the first table also provides full expenditure for this current year, but it's broken down into the projects that are allocated from this year, which is $3 million worth of expenditure, and also, I beg your pardon, $3 million from last year's expenditure and $265 from this year's allocations. I'll note that investment returns remain very low year to date, and also in the rates and charges, we're tracking very well this year. And I'll just note that the comparison to the same period last year is a little bit of an apples with oranges, as last September, Council in effect had 2 quarters due, given ratepayers additional time to make their payments for those 2 quarters due to COVID relief offered last year. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Raven and then Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. So just to be clear, Ms Bugg, the main reason the organisation is performing well on paper is because the capital delivery isn't being done.
There's a few reasons. One of those reasons is that capital is not being delivered at the same rate that we budgeted for.
Yeah. So, and when we correct that in the budget amendment, we'll just be letting them have more time to deliver that. Is that right?
In capital, yes.
In
There's
capital.
also operating delays as well.
Yep. And it's just frustrating that, and I know that you're doing the numbers and there's reasons for the numbers. You're not the one putting the shovel in the ground, so not holding you accountable. But it's frustrating that the numbers look good and the organisation looks like it's performing well because parts of the organisation are performing poorly. And there are reasons for that. I understand that there's supply chain issues, but Invest Logan has been building away in the background and speaking to their builders are making sure that their supply chain issues are under control 18 months in advance by stockpiling resources. I don't understand why council doesn't do that. I don't understand why we're letting projects slip, and I guess there's convenient excuses for why we're letting projects slip. We can all blame COVID. I just feel that in an organisation this size, with the spending power that it's got and the budgets that it has to prepare itself for what it knows is coming, I would be expecting us to acquire and secure the resources, materials that we need well in advance. I know probably the only one we can't control is the skilled labour. There's no way to control that because you can't make people out of nowhere that have the skills you want. But when it comes to the materials that we need, I think we should be locking that down well and truly in advance. If there's no plan to do that, I'd like to know why, and that's going to be a question I'll put to the Director of Infrastructure because he'll be the one who's going to have to do the heavy lifting. Sounds like there's a lot of water work to be done. But thank you for the report. I just wanted to bring to attention of councillors that the reason why the org performs well on paper is because it ain't delivering on its projects.
Thank you, and we're all very well aware of that with our LIP projects lagging behind. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. Ms Bugg, thank you so much for including the divisional LIP that is there. I didn't even know I had 58,000 left, so there you go. I'm very happy. But the main reason I put my hand up is last round I actually asked if there was money left last financial year for footpaths. It wasn't through here, this committee, it was through the Infrastructure Committee, and it came back that yes, there was some savings from last financial year. I'm just wondering about the process accounting-wise. when there's divisional LIP money left over each financial year, what's the criteria for reporting in each department? So if I hadn't asked, no one probably would have known that there are savings that can be reutilised. So what's the normal process for reporting that internally?
The process that we have for LIP is that we should be allocating funds as they are spent. So any unallocated funds would sit in this report. If those funds are allocated to the branches and they're unspent, then I don't have visibility of that.
Effectively, we've got to go back to each department and say what are the savings from last financial year so that I can allocate for this financial year a certain bucket of money. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I'm pretty sure I've asked for that sort of thing from you before, I think, for savings from previous jobs and things like that. Lovely. Does anyone else have anything else they wish to say? Mayor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on page 55, you've got just a snapshot, and you refer to developer contributions received, budget of 21 million, and you've got 17 million. Am I reading that right, that there was a shortfall?
That's correct.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting that because materials are in short supply, and I'd imagine it may, if it continues, to hamper our development in our city, which may lead to some financial issues. Can we be kept in the loop on the continuing trend of that? It's very important. And yesterday I was pretty busy. I didn't hear the Reserve Bank announcement. Has anyone got any? They normally have a Reserve Bank announcement on Cup Day. No change? But I think there was forecast there could be. Yeah, it's just for us it could be a perfect storm that development contributions go down and obviously interest rates go up because we're borrowing a lot of money. We're locked in with this infrastructure agreement, and I'm just a bit concerned about the outlook. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Power. Just moving forward, I'm just thinking, is there a pro forma that we can develop so that when we actually use our LIP funding for projects and stuff like that, councillors are automatically told on a form, these are the savings you have, these are now sitting within the branch, so that we can then reallocate them to other things within the branch? Because I know it happens with me in parks, but I don't actually know what my savings have been. They just keep going, do you want us to use savings? Yes.
I'm certainly happy to, through the chair, take that on. It's a lot of the time, what generally should happen is that the branch that actually has received the money should come and have a talk to the councillor that actually contributed the money in the first place to say that this project's come in under budget, or you've allocated these funds, I can't deliver that particular budget, particular project. How would you like those funds redirected? So I will take that up and have a conversation at ELT around that.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
That would be really lovely because sometimes we actually have to contribute funds on faith to get a project moving in the first instance. So we're handing over money for someone doing their job in designing something or what have you. So that'd be great.
Lovely. There is a motion on the board. Do I have a mover for the report? Thank you. Councillor Bradley has moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Does anyone else have anything to say? No? Perfect. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. That marks the end of Ms Bugg's reports. Do you have any general business for us? No? Does anyone have any general business for Ms Bugg this morning? No? Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the next item, and we're up to 6.1. Yeah. 6.1, and I will now ask the Administration Manager, Ms Kay Sullivan, to join us for the discussion. Before we open discussions, does anyone have any conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I will now refer to Ms Sullivan to open discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Report 6.1 is Council's annual report to Council for the exception from quotations or tenders. I'll take the report as read, but would just like to highlight the following points. In the utilisation of this legislation, Council uses also the 5 sound contracting principles. Our current information that we have is we have 99 suppliers on this list, which is actually less than 5% of our total suppliers and just greater than 1.5% of our total spend. Compared to last year, there's been the removal of 6 suppliers and the addition of 7 new suppliers. As per last year, we've also continued with our process through the recommendations of the Risk and Audit Committee, where we have good governance practices in place around the addition of new suppliers for those businesses who want to continue existing suppliers and also ending existing arrangements. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone want to open it up? Nope, otherwise I have just one and then I'll go to Councillor Lane. Just when you're looking through all of the different suppliers and that sort of thing, why would there be different exemption terms requested for each of the suppliers? Because they do vary between 1 and 10 years, I think, being the longest.
It's typically based on either the product or the service and the longevity of that. We are also moving to our strategic contracting framework, which means we will not need to follow this same process when that has been introduced.
Okay, Councillor Lane.
Yeah, that was kind of my question as well. So I know that every time I try to put a tree stump or something into a park, it's got to have a 25-year longevity with a decent price tag to it. So when we've got the difference between 1 and 10 years in terms of those contractors that we're just approving and saying, yes, they're ticked and flicked, I'm just curious as to whether or not that is part of that process.
It is, Councillor, and with the current process that we have, it also allows us to keep our eye on the market around new players and longevity of existing players as well. So by having shorter time frames and expecting either a business case or a justification each year, we're able to keep better track of the market and who are the existing, I won't say players, sorry, who are the existing suppliers within the market.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything further to add? No. Do I have a mover for the report that is displayed on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Lane has moved. Councillor Raven has seconded the report that's on the screen. Does anyone else wish to speak to the report? No. All those in favour of the report, please raise your hand. And that has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I will now refer to item 6.2, but before we open discussion on this, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare on this one? No? I note that 6.2 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into closed session, as the confidential report contains commercial in confidence information. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? Lovely. Councillor Murphy is moving for us to go into closed session, and is there a motion on the screen to move us in? Oh, it's on the screen. Is there a seconder for the motion that's on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I'll now open the floor to vote. All those in favour of going into confidential, please raise your hand. That has... Councillor Hall. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move into confidential, and we are now in closed session. And the recording can be turned back on. Lovely, and welcome back to those of you watching. There is a motion on the board in front of you. And I note that there is an amendment to clause 3 of the confidential report's original motion, as an alternate funding source has been identified for the acquisition. So is there a motion for the amended motion as displayed on the screen? Sorry, that's tongue twisting. Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Lane. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? No? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. I would now refer to item 6.3, and before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? There being none, I note that item 6.3 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session, as the confidential report contains commercial in confidence information. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? No? I just remind all councillors that if there's no desire to discuss the confidential matters, then we don't need to move into closed session. So I will now open the floor for and I'll now open the floor to Ms Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, councillors, I'll take this report as read, noting we're not in confidential, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? Councillor Murphy, just a reminder that we're not in confidential.
I'm just happy to move the report. Thank you.
Beautiful. Councillor Murphy has moved. Do I have a seconder for the report? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Quick meeting's a good meeting. That has been carried unanimously, with the exception of Councillor Lane. How do you vote?
Against.
Thank you. Has that been noted? Lovely. That marks the end of Ms Sullivan's reports. Is there any general business for Ms Sullivan? No. Do you have any for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. We can now move on to the next item. 7.1, and I will now ask Ms Sue McDonald to please enter discussions. Before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No. And when Ms McDonald is ready, she can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. The first report is the report on the legal services. I was requested to bring this report on the outcome and process for the engagement of Council's Legal Services panel. I take the report as being read, but I'll speak to it briefly. The Corporate Governance Branch participated in the pilot for the Strategic Contracting Framework for Council's preferred supplier arrangement for legal services. Governance worked with Administration Branch to develop a strategic sourcing strategy, which was based on feedback from previous users of the panel during the last few years of the previous contract, as well as taking into account anticipated needs. The outcome of the tender provides additional benefits to Council in that we now have a larger number of legal firms across a broader range of categories, and it ensures best practice for Council. We were successful in securing one local firm to the panel, which was something that had not previously been achieved. With increasing spend on legal fees due to an increasing complex environment that we operate in, the new arrangement also anticipates future needs over the life of the contract. A few months prior to the tender being finalised, a legal engagement process was developed. There were two, one for staff and one for councillors, and that was anticipated for how councillors can engage with legal services. One of the aims of that procedure was to ensure that councillors requesting access to legal services were ensured a seamless transition to the new panel arrangement. I was also requested to identify any previous reports that had been brought to Council on legal services. I was only able to identify one report which was provided in 2015, which was prior to the immediate past panel arrangements in place. I have not been able to find any subsequent reports to Council. It's an information report, and I just recommend that the report be received.
Thank
you very much, and I'll now open the floor to discussion for councillors, and I have Councillor Raven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sorry for dragging your committee out today. I requested that this report come forward as councillors had no line of sight who was on the Legal Services panel, which is pretty embarrassing when you go to LJQ, and as you approach each of the people who are there, you're like, are you on our Legal Services panel? Are you on our Legal Services panel? Are you on our Legal Services panel? What do you do for us? So it is something that councillors need to have line of sight of and an understanding of, and I'm disappointed we had to ask for a report to get that. It would have just been good to have been informed. I did get concerns around the process from the industry in the wake of the process. I've spoken to the administration manager about the procurement pilot that was run, and I'm satisfied that everything was done that could reasonably be done. But generally, when you've got lawyers complaining about due process, I like to give that an extra run just to make sure that we are doing everything we possibly could. And noting that it's a pilot, I'd like to think that there were some learnings from it, and next time we can avoid a situation where there's people who specialise in governance and the law concerned about the process. But I trust that we'll get there with the admin manager. I guess what's good to see is a local provider. That's exciting. I note that the report's very confident that a great outcome has been achieved based on future savings that haven't been realised yet. I'd like to just put a little note there to say I will believe it when I see it, when we actually have the money saved. But also that I think off the top of my head, Ms McDonald, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 800,000 plus anticipated saving. Was that right?
Approximately, yes.
Approximately. And noting that part of the strategy to generate that saving is and I've forgotten your position title, sorry, Claire, Legal Services, what's Claire? Advisor. Is there anything built into, so part of this process to achieve those savings is the assumption that the sort of triaging work done by the Legal Services Advisor will help make sure that we're not asking the wrong people for the wrong advice or going to a too high a level or too high cost provider. If those savings are realised, and given the quantum of those potential savings, and it may not be the place to raise it, so feel free to clip me, but it just seems like if there's one staff member who is working to increase the savings of the organisation, there should be some sort of target KPI with a performance bonus in there that goes with that, because if that ends up being $1.2 million of savings, that's significant for the organisation and would no doubt be to the hard work of that position, making sure that the triage is done effectively. And yeah, so just something for future consideration, that if you're going to put everything on one position, that position should have KPIs and incentives in order to achieve those outcomes. Even though I'm sure that the current officer in that position will work very hard, I just think that if you're incentivised, you can get even more savings for the ratepayer.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Do you have anything to add? No. I've got Councillor Lane and then Mayor Power.
Thanks very much. Ms McDonald, I appreciate the report and I appreciate knowing who Council's legal services are. For the average punter sitting at home, they wouldn't understand why we need so many. A good example of that is in the report it actually says, well, it's really hard to read and I'm wearing my glasses. It says prosecution and enforcement appeals, and then it's got 4 law firms listed. Is that where we're going after ratepayers, or is that on behalf of ratepayers? What, you know, when we look at this and we look at 4 legal firms employed under that one header, what sort of things would they be actually chasing down?
Through the chair, and our senior legal advisor can correct me if I've misunderstood this here, but I understand that is for it's appeals planning under the planning and environment legislation. Is that correct? For through the chair, more prosecutions and compliance for our city standards and animal care. So where there's perhaps PINs that have been issued, penalty infringement notices that have been issued, and we're required to go to the magistrates court to enforce those type of enforcement matters.
Sorry, okay, so why would we need 4 for them, is my question.
Ms Lovejoy, do you want to pop up? Through the chair, in relation to, the question of how many panel firms you would require for a specific category, it gives an opportunity of choice. Just having one or two firms creates conflict issues and it creates market problems potentially. We have a better ability to sort of keep the costs down when we have more options as well. We can sort of get competitive quotes from the law firms. So that, and bear in mind I was not involved with the actual setting up of the panel, but that was the intention, to get more law firms across more categories so that we can have that competitive advantage and we have more choices and options.
Thanks. So do we pay a retainer? So in the example of prosecution of and enforcement appeals, do we pay a retainer to all four, or do we just pay as we use?
Through the chair, we pay as we use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Power.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little bit concerned in the process. There seems to be a heavily weighted process on best value on a financial scale. What amount of research did you do in regards to selecting the best legal representation as far as success in the court? What homework did you put into in regards to show us that we're getting the best money for value in regards to success? It's very easy to employ people on a money scale, but it's no use if we go to court and we lose, and then we're going to pay fees, and that whole argument goes out the door. If we don't have the best legal representation, and we go clearly on best value because of the cheapest, I have no confidence in this process whatsoever.
Through the chair, I'm happy to answer that question. So there were a number of factors that need to be satisfied in this tender panel. The financial aspect was just one. There was also a technical capability. So each aspect of the panel was given a particular weighting. And I can say for the technical capability, we required the legal firms to provide us with some examples of their success and their technical ability in each of the categories. And they were able to do so. So that factored into the weighting.
I guess time will tell. Time will tell. I've got to state now that there's one particular firm here that I have no confidence in whatsoever, has been involved in the political process, and I hope that I have no dealings with him as the mayor with that particular company. And I'll be stipulating that now. I do not want any dealings with one particular company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nor do I.
Councillor Kransky, thanks. Okay. Just curious, I have one question. How often should these reports come up, or how often should we be reviewing this panel?
Through the chair, so the life of this panel is for a contract of 3 years with 2 options to extend of 1 year each.
Okay, because I'm just trying to work out then why hasn't it been done since 2015?
Through the chair, I could not answer that. Unfortunately, that was completed by a manager prior to my time.
Okay, so at least we know now. Councillor Kransky.
Thank you. Robert, why hasn't this been done since 2015?
My understanding that the previous panel, the contract with the previous panel expired at the end of last financial year, Councillor Kransky. Is that right, Sue?
That's correct, yes.
And just to be clear, Robert, so if we're only receiving this report today, we're not endorsing the recommendations that's already happened on an officer level without any involvement by councillors, is that right?
That's correct, Councillor Kerensky. There was a tender and it was signed off by myself using my delegation. So it's simply here today due to Councillor Raven's GB item requesting information with regard to the process and who's on the panel arrangement currently.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they wish to ask? No? Do I have a mover for the motion that's displayed on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Do I have a seconder for the motion that's on the screen? Councillor Raven has seconded. Does anyone have anything else they wish to add? No? I'll now open the floor to vote, and all those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, that hasn't been carried unanimously, so I'm just going to go around the room. So I'm in support of it. Councillor Murphy in support. Councillor Stamp is in support. Councillor Hall is in support. Councillor Bannon and Jeremiah and Fraser are all in support. Councillor Raven's in support. Councillor Lane is in support, and Councillor Russell is in support. So I have Councillor Bradley. How do you vote, Councillor Bradley?
I did.
Oh, you did? Sorry. Okay, so Mayor Power?
Against.
Against, and Councillor Kransky.
Abstain.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are now up to item 7.2, and before we open discussion on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest to declare? No. There being none, Ms McDonald, please proceed with public discussion on 7.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The terms of reference for the Audit and Risk Committee provide that recommendations from the committee be reported to Ordinary Council via the City Governance. This report includes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee held on 21 September 2021. The main purpose of that meeting was to review the draft annual financial statements for submission to the external auditor. The committee achieved that and recommended that the Mayor and Acting Chief Executive Officer execute the management certificate on behalf of Council. The committee also received a report from the external auditors on its assessment of Council's internal controls. According to the local government regulation, the Auditor General closing report is required to be reported to Council at its next meeting. Accordingly, I took the opportunity to include that in this report. You will note that the Auditor General approved Council's financial statements and issued an unmodified audit opinion, which will be included in the Auditor General's next report to Parliament. As I was on annual leave at the time of this meeting, I have asked our Finance Manager, Caroline Bugg, to be available should there be any technical questions about the annual financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Raven and then Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your ongoing indulgence. Ms McDonald, page 172 of the report refers to EFT payments, and members of the Audit Committee might be able to respond to this one. It essentially outlines that EFT payments are stored in a unencrypted text document that can be modified before it's uploaded. This was an issue when I was on the Audit Committee pre-2020. How come we're still trying to deal with this now?
I'm looking at page 172 and I can't see it on my 172.
177, did you say?
I got 172 of the PDF because paper is a waste of money.
Until you need it.
No, I don't need it. It's other people need it. So it might be 174. Sometimes they're 2 pages out. For the Luddites.
There is, I might try and tackle that one. The Deputy Mayor does raise a good point. So on a page 172, I think it's page 14 of the actual audit report.
Yep.
I think the Deputy Mayor is referring to the EFT payment files finding. So you're right in relation to files being saved in text format. This is a repeat issue, so it's not great. So it's something that we certainly are looking at and putting in steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Excellent. So can we, members of the Audit Committee, can you put some pressure on through that process to make sure that that's done? Because just looking at the audit where there's that grey line that goes diagonally through where there's things that are of higher risk and things that are of lower risk. Most of our stuff was in the higher risk section, and while it says that there's no significant concerns, there were some breaches in there, and these sorts of things that have been going on for a number of years contribute to those breaches and that audit outcome. Also, page 174, so I'm guessing that's page 16 of the audit report. 22nd of November 2019, so we're in administration at that time. The reference to the mayor and the title of the the mayor's charity trust is identified as a risk. I'm really confused about why it took councillors to come back to address this risk when really in our absence, with it being raised through the audit committee, I would have thought it would have been raised, dealt with and identified while the benevolent dictator was on the scene. That's what I spoke to the former administrator yesterday. She refers to herself as the benevolent dictator, and she reminded me about this one actually.
All right. Mayor Power?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on exactly this thing. We made a decision to change the name,
But they haven't done it yet.
and it's still further on in the report. It's still
Through the chair, I can answer.
It's all right.
I'm happy to
McDonald's
take
going to
that question, Mayor Powell. We have written to the directors of the trust requesting that they change the name. Unfortunately, it is within the power of the directors to be able to do that.
My question was, why wasn't it done? Why did it take councillors to come back though? Why didn't you guys just do it while we were gone? If it was identified as a risk that you could have just taken off the books.
Through the chair, it's not something that council can do. It's the directors of the trust that needs to achieve that.
I get that bit, but did we write to them? Or did you write to them during administration as well? And
Yes,
they
I
still
have.
didn't do it then? Okay,
Correct.
thank you. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Just if you're talking to the microphones, can you talk a little bit louder so that Councillor Lane can hear, because she can't hear?
And all of that's true. We have written a few times based on what was in the audit report and based on the request of the mayor to change the name. And we did have a meeting with the chair of the board recently and reaffirmed council's desire to get that name changed as quickly as possible.
Councillor Lane?
Just a quick question. If we've had this argy-bargy back and forth, how come we weren't aware of it?
Through the chair, sorry, Councillor Lane, aware of the change of the name?
Aware of the directors not wanting to action that particular request. How come we weren't made aware of that? If we've had several letters back and forth, I wasn't aware of it from the first time they said no or not yet or whatever their response was.
Through the chair, we haven't had a response from the directors formally. However, they are aware of our request to change the name.
We're about to go into it. It's all right. Sorry, I'm remiss. I missed Councillor Stamp. Sorry, back to you.
That's fine, Madam Chair. I was actually bringing this up anyway. This was my point of discussion as well. So it's fine. It's been discussed.
All right. Does anyone else have anything further to add? Questions? No. Okay, there is a motion on the screen. Do I have a mover for the motion that's on the screen? Councillor Raven has moved. Do I have a seconder for the motion that's on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Bradley has seconded. Anyone have anything else to add to this one? No? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you so much. We will now refer to item 7.3, and before we open discussion on this item, I note that Councillors Raven, Russell and Murphy have indicated they wish to make a statement. Did you guys want to make a statement? Councillor Raven?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the nominees or candidates in this report has referred to me or has put me down as a reference. I was unaware that this nominee was going to do that. I don't have a personal relationship with this nominee, and I don't believe I have a conflict of interest for a host of reasons, including that no decision is being made on this report, and that that I have no personal relationship and they are not a close associate of mine. I only know them through my capacity as being a councillor, and I invite other councillors who would like to test whether or not I have a conflict of interest to do so by declaring against me, but I will not be declaring one.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Russell, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in the same position. I'm also named as a referee and was not aware by the same candidate. And yeah, I'm very confident that I do not have a conflict for the same reasons that Councillor Raven has stated.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murphy, do you have anything else?
Thank you. One of the nominees for the Mayor's Trust is also known to me through the Chamber of Commerce days. However, he was in a completely different Chamber of Commerce. I do not have any business dealings. I wouldn't have associated with him and don't feel that I have a conflict of interest in any way, shape or form.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do any other councillors have any declarations regarding a conflict of interest? No? Okay. Awesome. We don't need to test it. I note that item 7.3 is confidential, and I note that it is considered necessary to take the discussion of this report into a closed session as the confidential attachments contain personal information of the applicants. Do any councillors wish to move into closed session for this item? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do I have a seconder to move into confidential? Thank you, Councillor Lane. All those in favour, please raise your hand to go into confidential. Councillor Hall, how do you vote? Thank you. That's been carried unanimously. We will now move into confidential. The meeting is now closed to the public. Please be advised that meeting is now in confidential session and therefore Oh, and with the exception of Councillor Bradley not being in the room, sorry. There will be a motion on the screen in just a moment. Lovely. There is a motion on the screen. If you could cast your eye over it. And then do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you. Councillor Raven has moved. Councillor Bannon has seconded. Does anyone else have anything else to say about it? No? Great. Can we please vote? Raise your hands if you're in favour. Lovely. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Bradley, who is not in the room. That marks the end of Ms McDonald's reports. Do we have any general business for Ms McDonald? No? Do you have any for us? You do? Lovely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just happy to pick up on the Deputy Mayor's comments before, and I'm pleased to advise that we are briefing councillors on the Community Benefit Fund processes next week. We're hoping to bring that to the December committee round together with the councillor expenses and entitlements procedure, as well as the amended meeting code.
Thank you. I had noticed that in the briefing report as well. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Ms McDonald, we've got an admin team sitting up on level 5 who are doing a good job. I'm just wondering when they're going to be offered surety of employment.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Through the Chair, I am pleased to advise that I'm advertising the coordinator role very shortly. That is progressing through our talent acquisition team. Once the coordinator position is in place, I'll be in a position to advertise the remaining 3 roles.
Thanks. Will that be appointed before Christmas?
Through the Chair, I certainly hope so.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Councillor Heremiah, do you have a motion to bring forward? Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll keep it quick. I have a general business motion. I believe it should be showing on the board. Now, this general business motion is all about doing an annual review of the Procurement and Appropriations Special Committee. In the terms of reference, we included that every year we're going to step back, look at what the Special Committee has been up to and plan the next year. So this general business motion is all about requesting that the Corporate Governance Manager goes and undertakes that review and brings it back to a City Governance Committee in the future. Pretty straightforward. Happy to take any questions from anyone, but it's a pretty straightforward motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Heremiah? No? So we need a mover for the report that is now displayed on the screen. Thank you, Councillor Heremiah. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Raven. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms McDonald. That marks the end of your reports. And we're up to item 9.1. We have one more item. Sorry. 9.1, and I will now open discussions with Mr. Robert Strachan.
Thank you. Through the Chair, councillors, I will be very brief, I promise.
Sorry, hang on before we start. I did forget to ask, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? No? Sorry, keep going.
Okay, so this is very similar to the report that the Corporate Governance Manager presented with regard to the results of the audit of Council. Queensland Audit Office also audit Council subsidiary Invest Logan. So Council received a, I suppose, update. The Mayor received an update in relation to that audit. And, you know, happy to say their audit was signed off. There was no modification to their audit certificate. And the audit was completed in a timely manner to allow consolidation of the Invest Logan results into Council's results. There was one deficiency raised in the audit, and that related to a lack of segregation of duties, which is not uncommon in small organisations where you've got few people doing multiple things. But happy to note that Invest Logan solved that segregation of duty issue in relation to approving general journals by engaging a bookkeeper that prepares the accounts in part, which allows the head of finance within Invest Logan to do the review and sign off on those general journals. So that deficiency has been addressed. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No? Lovely.
Do I have a mover for the motion that's displayed on the board? Thank you, councillor Stemp. Do I have a seconder for the motion that's on the board? Thank you, councillor Murphy. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? Lovely. I will now open the floor to vote. Please raise your hand in favour. Thank you. That has been carried unanimously. Oh, sorry. Oh, councillor Raven is not in the room. Sorry. Did not notice the empty chair. I'm so sorry. I note that due to social distancing restrictions, not all managers or staff could attend today. So that being said, does anyone have any general business for Director of Organisational Services, Mr. Robert Strachan? Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much. And I buggered it up because I actually was supposed to ask Ms Bugg this question. So we had an issue where some residents received a rate bill for $3,000 worth of water each. And it was a mistake, but they actually have to wait to receive an amended letter that tells them how much it's been reduced by. My question is will they get the discount if they've paid their rates on time in past, because they actually haven't got it and can't consider it until they get it, obviously. So they got a rate notice for one unit block. Instead of splitting it up between them, they actually billed them each the full amount. So there's a few heart attacks happened, but it got sorted. My point is they haven't received the letter yet. So will they be entitled to a rates discount if they pay within so many weeks of receiving this updated notice?
If it was council's mistake that caused them not to pay their rate bill and to receive the discount, they will receive the discount.
Thanks very much.
Lovely. Do you have any general business for us, Mr. Strachan? Lovely. That completes our agenda for today, and I declare the City Governance Committee meeting 3rd of November 2021 concluded at 1:02. Thank you all for your patience and your attendance.